am Bernice Bronson, Executive Director and founder of Zena's House. Zena's House is a nonprofit organization that was established in 2004, and we provide life skill workshops, mentoring, exposure trips, and scholarships for middle and high school students in Metro Atlanta. So we believe exposure is very important, and so doing this career day is under our exposure component, where we believe that the more students know and are exposed to different things, from colleges to careers to the arts, their mind will expand and their goals will be set. And so we're so excited to have all of you here today, so we can learn more about careers in federal law enforcement, specifically with DSS, FBI, NCIS, and DEA. So before we start, I would like everyone to put in the chat if you're a parent or if you're a student. And if you're a student, put your grade and what school you attend. And as we get started, whatever questions you have, please make sure that you put it in the chat box, and we will address them at the end. This workshop will be recorded, so please be mindful of that. And without further ado, I will introduce our moderator, and she will take it from there. Our moderator is my sister, Miss Ellen Tanner Richardson, and she is a Diplomatic Security Service Supervisory Special Agent and a member of the Senior Foreign Service. And she began her career 19 years ago as an agent in Chicago. She is currently now the Executive Director of Overseas Security Advisory Council, still under the Department of State Diplomatic Security Service. Ellen is married to Alston Richardson. They have 4 children. Alston is also a Diplomatic Security Supervisory Special Agent. Ellen holds a BBA in marketing from Texas Wesleyan University and an MBA in international business.
But thank you for the warm introductions, Bernice. Really excited to be here today because I have an amazing group of panelists and I can't wait to introduce them to you and actually get started. So let me start by introducing our first panelist, which is Alston Richardson. He is a native of St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. He is a member of the Senior Foreign Service and is currently the Regional Director for Africa Affairs and International Programs. He's had an extensive 20-year law enforcement career, and he currently oversees 41 U.S. embassies and consulates around Africa. He started his career on the SWAT team, Mobile Security Deployment, where he deployed to places like Iraq and Afghanistan, Papua New Guinea, and many more. He served overseas in Algiers, Djibouti, and Angola, and Germany. And his background is in Army aviation as a Black Hawk pilot. So welcome, Alston Richardson. Our next, I'm gonna do all introductions before we get started. Our next panelist is Vincent Francis, who represents the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation. He is a native of New York City and an Air Force veteran. He has served a long 20+ year career in the FBI. He's worked in counterintelligence, been a detailee to the Director of National Intelligence, CIA. He's been in the Los Angeles field office and a unit chief in the Directorate of Intelligence. He has served domestically in many places and traveled all over. So please welcome Vincent Francis. Next is Danielle James, representing NCIS. She is a native of Houston, Texas. Danielle is a supervisory special agent and is currently the special agent in charge of the Cyber Field Office located in Washington, D.C. She manages over 60 agents, intelligence specialists, computer and program analysts, and is the special agent in charge. Over her career, she served as Assistant Director of Human Resources. She serves as the Senior Representative to the FBI National Counterintelligence, as well as the Special Agent in Charge in Stuttgart, Germany. She's also served her career overseas in counterintelligence in Rota, Spain, and Okinawa, Japan. Please welcome Danielle James. And then also, and not least but not lastly, we have Andre Kellem, who represents DEA. Andre Kellem is a native of Chicago. He spent 34 years in DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, most recently as the Regional Director of Africa, located in South Africa. He also served as the ASAC of the Assistant Special Agent in charge of the Washington Field Office, and Special Agent in charge of the Special Operation Division, Regional Director for Far East, located in Bangkok, Thailand. He's also the recipient of the Presidential Rank Award and is a current author of a newly released novel called Truth and Terror. Let me put it up there. It is a fictional account of a DEA special agent conducting transnational organized crime investigations, and it's a thriller. So there you have it, our very own author, Truth and Terror, and DEA special agent. So let me pause with introductions and start with what we're here for, and that's questions about federal law enforcement. So if I can start with Mr. Richardson in diplomatic security and have you kick it off. And please just start off by telling us a little bit about your education, the qualifications needed to be a DS special agent, and the training.
So thank you, Ellen. I have a bachelor's degree in aviation business administration, and I specialize in aviation and aerospace logistics. I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. And from there, I got a commission. I was in the Army for about 7 years, about 10 years, actually, as a helicopter pilot before coming to diplomatic security. As I sort of set that all up, I think it's very important to note that you do not need a background in the military or any type of police organization to have a career in the diplomatic security service, or quite frankly, any federal law enforcement agency. What's most important is for you to have a bachelor's degree. That's the most important thing. And then there are obviously other personal qualities you also need to have, because people of good moral character are pretty much, it's a given that you have to have good moral character and able to pass the background investigations necessary for a career in federal law enforcement. I've been with the Diplomatic Security Service 20 years. I've had an opportunity to travel the world, places I've never thought I would have gone, and places that I never thought existed. It's been fantastic. Our mission in the Diplomatic Security Service is pretty much threefold. First, we're criminal investigators. We're criminal investigators first and foremost, and we focus on visa and passport fraud investigations. It may not sound very sexy to the average person, but when you think about human traffickers and transnational crime and counterintelligence and all these cases that have impact on our national security, they all start with people wanting to travel across borders to commit these crimes. And that's where visa and passport fraud investigation becomes so critical to our national security. So criminal, from an investigative standpoint, that's where our investigative nexus is sort of nestled. We also have a protection mission. And for those of you not familiar with protection, essentially it's being a bodyguard. We have a bodyguard mission similar to the US Secret Service, where the Secret Service protects the heads of state when they visit the United States. We protect other protectees who are not heads of state as directed by the president or the Secretary of State. So we work very much hand in hand with the Secret Service, but we perform our mission a little differently. And that's where we're most focused. We have permanently assigned protectees that we are assigned to protect on a day-to-day basis. And those permanent protectees, our number one protectee is the Secretary of State. Similar to the Secret Service, number one protectee is the president. Our number one protectee is the Secretary of State. We also protect the ambassador to the UN, the ambassador to our UN mission in New York. And we also protect we also have other assigned permanent protectees that go off and on. So domestically, when I say domestically here in the United States, those are our two primary missions: protection of our protectees and investigative missions. Our investigative missions, which is nestled in visa and passport fraud. What makes us different from other law enforcement agencies is we're worldwide assigned. So in addition to being assigned in the United States, we can be assigned anywhere in the world where there's a US embassy. And so overseas, our mission overseas is to protect our foreign diplomats overseas. We manage security programs that keep our people safe at US embassies in London, to Papua New Guinea, to Saudi Arabia, to China, to Chile, to Canada. Wherever there's a US embassy, there's a diplomatic security special agent there that is managing the programs to keep those people safe. That managing those programs are in terms of the resources that's necessary, the physical resources, the human resources, and the technical resources to keep those people safe, the cameras, the actual the guards that are outside. We manage all those programs. So we have a very holistic and very comprehensive approach when it comes to this. So our agents are investigators, they are managers, they are bodyguards, and so much more. And that's what makes our organization so very unique. I sort of pause there as my intro into our organization.
Thank you so much, Alston. Appreciate that great intro. Now let me move over to DEA. Andre Kellem, please tell us a little bit about education, qualifications, and training needed to be a DEA agent. You're muted, Andre.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My specific education is I have a bachelor's degree from Eastern Illinois University and criminal justice, and I have a master's degree from American Military University in criminal justice also. I was born and raised in Chicago, and over the course of my career, I worked in Chicago, El Paso, Washington, D.C., Jamaica, Nigeria, Thailand, Morocco, and South Africa. In order to be hired as a DEA special agent, you need a 4-year college degree with a cumulative grade point average of 2.95 on a 4-point scale. You also have to pass a psychological exam and a polygraph. And once hired, DEA trainees will go to the DEA Training Academy for 20 weeks in Quantico, Virginia, where they will be taught in the area of firearms, arrest techniques, self-defense, and academics. In such areas legal search and seizures and appropriate use of deadly force. What does a DEA special agent do? DEA special agents enforce the U.S. drug laws by conducting an investigation on suspected narcotics traffickers. DEA investigations are initiated by gathering information on suspected drug kingpins based on information from informants or in some cases from other law enforcement agencies. DEA investigations happen as a result of gathering evidence, which can be done through gathering witness statements, conducting surveillance, seizing properties and drug proceeds, and in some cases making undercover drug purchases. Now, my career has expanded over 34 years, and one of the reasons that I kind of chose that profession in the first place was because I liked a great deal of excitement, and I had actually joined the Marine Corps when I was in college, and I found out about this career in DEA through a friend whose father was a compliance officer in the area of pharmaceuticals. And then during my research, I found out that they had special agent or criminal investigator positions. And that's the career I pursued, especially after I graduated from college. And so it's a very worthwhile career, and it's a very exciting career.
Andre, you said, thank you. You said something that perked my ear. You said you had to take a polygraph. Now, I think the folks have all seen this on TV, and it's the thing that makes you sweat and you got to tell the truth. Tell us a little bit about this process.
Well, actually, when I came on, it wasn't required. This is something I guess probably started in around the late 1990s, in which you have to take a polygraph. So that's part of the issue. So one of the good things I could say about it is the main thing is for young people to just try to stay away from drugs and try to stay on the straight and narrow, and then they won't find themselves in a compromised situation once they take a polygraph. So the bottom line, the one thing about this form is good. It just reminds people that, you need to do what you can and stay on the straight and narrow. And so you won't have any complications when you do take the polygraph, because they're going to ask you specific questions about things that are questionable if you're doing drug use and things like that. But you do have to do a drug use statement when you hire as a DEA special agent.
Okay, thank you so much. That's good to know. And then we're going to move over to NCIS, Ms. Danielle James. Danielle, please tell us a little bit about your education, qualifications, training to be an NCIS agent.
Hi, good morning, Ellen, and good morning to the panel and everyone that's in the audience. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. So my name is Danielle James, and I'm a special agent with NCIS, and I have been with NCIS for 16 years. Prior to that, I was a special agent with Diplomatic Security Service. So my education is I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a minor in juvenile justice from Florida A&M University. I also have a master's degree in organizational leadership from Oklahoma State University. So for the educations and qualifications to be an NCIS special agent is very much the same you'll hear from all the other panelists. In order to be a special agent with any federal law enforcement organization, you have to have a bachelor's degree. For NCIS, your GPA has to be a 3.0. The particular degree does not matter. You can have a degree in criminal justice, pharmacy, what have you. What we are looking for is your ability to process information, articulate yourself, and be able to write in a clear manner, because you will be, taking that information to court and testifying against it. So being able to really write in a clear, understandable manner is really key for NCIS, and then being able to articulate yourself and communicate with others. So the training for NCIS, we attend the Federal Law Enforcement Training Academy in Glencoe, Georgia for 5 months. Very similar to the FBI. It's physical fitness, firearms training, driving, and an understanding of law. And you also practice conducting interviews and witness interviews, and you practice testifying in court. So an overview of NCIS, the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. We are the federal law enforcement arm of the Department of Navy, and we conduct all felony level criminal investigations into the crimes that the Navy and the Marine Corps personnel commit. We are not in the military. I would say there's only 5% of our organization that are actually in the military. The rest of us are not. I have never been in the military. NCIS, we also conduct counterintelligence and counterterrorism investigations pertaining to threats against the Department of Navy. And then we also, if you look on this slide, it has, this airplane. So if you think of scientists who create things for the Department of Navy, for our military personnel to utilize, we also conduct research, development, and acquisitions investigations to protect that technology, right? So just to make sure a foreign adversary or someone is not stealing how to create this airplane or how to create a submarine or what have you, this is what NCIS agents do. NCIS agents are stationed throughout the world. Unlike Diplomatic Security Service, we are not in every single country. So wherever there is a Navy or military base, Navy or Marine Corps military base, that is where so Japan, Singapore, Europe, such as Germany and Italy, those are our main overseas locations. We are also stationed throughout the United States, again, at Navy and Marine Corps military bases throughout the United States. So mainly on the East Coast and the West Coast. We don't have a lot of offices in the middle of the United States. So that's a quick overview of NCIS, our education and qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Danielle, you said that you don't need a military background, but yet you're going to need to learn firearms, investigation, and so forth. Is everything you need to know they're going to teach you, or are you going to have to come in? If you've never held a gun a day in your life, can you be an NCIS agent?
Yes, you can. So my background is I was never in law enforcement prior to becoming a special agent. So everything that you need to know, you will learn it at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So all you need to do is have the will and the desire to learn, and the rest we will help you with. So that's a great question. Oh, and I apologize. Much like the DEA, NCIS, you have to have a polygraph examination as well to be hired. And so it's a lifestyle polygraph examination that asks you about your prior drug use, your criminal history, and your credit report. So all of that information, if you just tell the truth up front, then you will be fine. So thank you.
Wow. Credit report too. So, so you have young people coming in, maybe limited work experience, and could their credit impede them from starting a job with NCIS?
Yes. So if you have taken out, 900 credit cards while you're in college, because young people, as you go to college, you'll see they'll have, nice little booth set up that'll say, hey, please get a credit card. And you too, just all you got to do is just sign up with us. And so if you have 900 credit cards and you have not paid them, within the last 3 years, and you have an excessive outstanding debt, and you cannot explain how you intend to pay off this debt, then yes, that will prevent you from becoming a special agent with NCIS. However, if you have 900 credit cards and you have an excessive debt and you can explain how you intend to pay this off and you have been paying your 900 credit cards on time, then you will be okay. The issue is not paying your bills.
Wow, that's good to know. A credit card could stop you from getting your job. So thank you for that note, Danielle. And then last but not least, Vincent in FBI. Vincent, please tell us a little bit about your education, your qualification, and training to become an FBI special agent. Vincent, did we lose you?
It's muted.
Can you hear me now?
Can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Fantastic. Hey, good morning, all. Hey, first of all, let me tail in on Danielle's talk about credit card debt. Here's the thing. When you're in debt and you come into a job like, whether it's the FBI, NCIS, DEA, State Department, what they're worried about is that you need money. You are in a place where you have access to a lot of information, top secret, classified information, and you can be compromised. That means other people from other countries.
Compromise? What do you mean compromise? Help me understand, Vince. What do you mean compromise?
Sure, no problem. You need money and someone says that, hey, this person needs money. And I think if I give this person who's in desperate need for money right now, they may go ahead and turn over some information that the public shouldn't have or other countries shouldn't have. So they can hold something over your head. That's what I'm trying to get at. And if you come into an organization where—
Like blackmailed, maybe?
Most that,
Okay.
it can get into that as well. It can get into that as well, because if someone can say that, hey, this person is doing this or doing that or taking money from me, or we do drugs together, or we do things that are illegal, and then later on that relationship fractures, or later on that person wants to get something out of you because of your position in the organization that you currently represent, that's when the blackmail comes into play. That's when bad things happen. That's when you feel cornered and you feel obligated to go ahead and give up information, give up secrets. And then before you know it, you become a movie of the week. Because
but Vincent, I'm from little, South Fulton County. Nobody knows me. I'm not interested. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a high profile person. I'm just somebody who's trying to make a career. I mean, I think people are looking for more important people. No,
most definitely not. Hey, I'm wearing a shirt right now that represents the Bronx. I'm from the Bronx, New York, very proud, even though I'm here in the DC metro area right now, but I'm very proud person from the Bronx. And I didn't come from money. I didn't come from a big name family or anything like that. But before you know it, I'm in a situation where I have the country's secrets at my fingertips, okay? And then you in the audience may say, wow. Here's the thing. The organization that hired me, the FBI, they are trusting me. They have their trust in me that I'll keep that stuff secret. that I'll keep that stuff to myself, that I'll use that to further my investigations, to keep the country safe. And they had to do a background check of me, just like everyone else, and make sure that I'm of good, solid moral character and fiber, that I wouldn't do anything untoward and sell my country out for just money, or for women, or for drugs, or for whatever the case may be. So it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter how small or big your family is, how rich they are or may not be. When you get into these organizations, when you become a federal law enforcement officer, the things that you touch, the things that you engage in are important, are very important to the national security of our country. And a lot of people around the world who don't mean us any good, from a number of countries, want to get their hands on those things. Okay, let me just touch base on a little bit of how I got into the Bureau. Once again, I'm a New York native.
How you got into the Bureau?
Into the FBI.
Oh, okay. Is that what you call it on the inside? The Bureau?
That's how we call it, the Bureau.
Okay.
And the FBI.
Now we know the Bureau for short.
Definitely, definitely. Hey, just like anybody else, you get influenced by things. By watching TV and watching movies when I was a kid, and seeing guys crash through windows and ride on hoods of cars and taking their guns out every couple of seconds and arresting people and stuff, that seemed cool to me. I said, hey, you know what? I have to do that too. My father was a police officer in New York City. I knew I wanted to go to college. I knew I wanted to take it a step further. I knew I wanted to see a little bit more of the country. And that was my focus. That was my focus for a lot of years. But one thing you guys will see is that life happens. And life happens doesn't mean that all negative things or bad things are going to happen to you. But even though you have plans, even though you have a focus of what you want to do, other things come into play. Personal things, things on the job, deaths, marriages, things that will get you off track a little bit, okay? And so I'm at a point where, you know, already my 20s are gone. I'm working at a job in San Antonio, Texas. I don't know how I got to San Antonio, Texas from New York. And it's an investment company job, and I'm okay, and I'm doing that. But I was like, you know what did I really want to do? I really wanted to be in the Bureau. And the Bureau's not calling me. I mean, I try to call them, and you know, you stay persistent. That doesn't mean that you always get everything you want, but if you stay persistent, you'll be surprised at the doors that will open up for you. And I stay persistent, and what happened was 9/11 happened, September 11th, 2001, the attack on our country, that happened. When that happened, what the government did, the US government did, is they were like, hey, you know what? I think we need more people with a certain skill set. I think we need more CIA officers, more FBI agents. What they did is they went around the country and they found people with that certain skill set. One of the things that I had that they were interested in is my degree. I went to the University of Texas at San Antonio, and I got a degree in biology. They were looking at STEM, people with STEM fields. That's what the science, the technology, the engineering, the mathematics, those fields, okay? And I had that in my background. They recruited me. I took a number of exams. Some of the exams are written, had to do with math, a little bit of things like that. And then other exams were sitting in front of a panel of people and just talking to them. You have to be able to sit in front of an audience or sit in front of somebody one-on-one and give your story. And everybody on this panel has done that over time. So that's what I did. They recruited me, I got in, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm in Quantico, Virginia. Quantico, Virginia is the place where they train you to be an FBI agent. We're right next door to the DEA. They're on that same military base. It's actually a Marine base that we're in. It's about an hour south of DC. And I was there for about 4 months. But right now, if you guys were to pursue career in the FBI, you would be there for about 5 months or so. So the time has gone up a little bit. I had never, despite the fact my father was a police officer, I had never touched a gun before. Never. Despite the fact that I was interested in the FBI all those years, I just didn't have the opportunity to.
And they
you know
taught
what?
you everything they know, and you can shoot straight to this day?
To this day, most definitely, most definitely. And you know, sometimes that's a good thing because yes, it was a little bit easier for some people who had familiarity with the weapons when they started training. But what the Bureau wants to do is take you from the stage one. They want to let you know that, hey, this is the barrel, this is the stock, this is a bullet. And they just build you up and you just take your time, you learn, and then you're holding in your hand a plastic gun, a fake gun, okay? And then you're putting that in your holster. And after a while, you graduate to a real weapon. And then you're on the range, and then you don't even have any ammunition in the weapon. All you're doing is on the range, just, you know, doing the movements and just looking at the target and then using that trigger finger to just nice and easily come back on the trigger. What I'm trying to say is that don't think that you have to have a background in any particular thing that the Bureau does or any federal law enforcement agency does. They will teach you. What you do need to do, and it was mentioned earlier, is to keep clean, have good moral character, okay? That doesn't mean I never lied to mom or dad about something. That doesn't mean that many moons ago, maybe I did, I don't know, look over somebody's shoulder during an exam or something like that. That doesn't mean those things, okay? Because no one's perfect. What I'm talking about is staying out of trouble. What I'm talking about is keeping good company, okay? If you keep poor company, that's going to bring you down. If you're the poor company, shame on you, okay? So make sure that you live a good life, because even when I wanted to go into the FBI much earlier and the availability wasn't there for me, I still did the right thing. I didn't go on the weekends and started smoking and doing drugs and doing all this. Now, talking about drugs, here's the thing. We are in a time in our country right now, there are some states say that you can do marijuana and some states say that you can, and this, that, and the other. Here's a little tidbit from me. I'm not sure what the laws are in the state of Georgia, but stay away from it altogether. Because when it comes to that interview time and they're starting to ask you, well, have you ever done drugs before and how often? There are some situations where, hey, I did marijuana 3 times, but that was 10 years ago. Technically, you can get into law enforcement agencies with that. What's better for you is to say, no, I've never touched it. I've never done it. I've never done any drugs at all. That's a cleaner, more succinct answer to give, okay? Now, later on, when you're in your 50s and 60s, you want to do some experimentation, knock yourself out. But coming into the FBI,
You didn't give that advice for Vincent, did you?
So do it. Stay away. Do the right thing. Hey,
but Vincent, what is important that I heard you say is obviously we want to encourage everybody, don't do this. But if you've had some mistakes over the past, as young people tend to do, it's not a complete disqualifier. If they can show that they have, that is old behavior in the past, they still have an opportunity, a pipeline to get in. There is some grace in the process. That's what I think I heard, correct?
Most definitely, most definitely. There's very few mistakes you can do in life that can be rectified or can have some distance to them so that you can do fantastic things with your career and to include federal law enforcement.
Good. So that's given us some hope, because I think for young people, especially in this day and age, everybody's made mistakes, and as long as there's hope at the end. Thank you for that, Vincent. Appreciate it.
Most definitely.
Alston, let me go back to you. So we've learned a little bit about your education and your qualifications, but we want to know how you got in this career. Well, I think what we've heard pretty much from all of you is there's no set path in order to be a special agent. You can come from a lot of different backgrounds. You can have different degrees, different skill sets, and it doesn't have to be anything pertaining to law enforcement. Tell us, how did you say, you know what, diplomatic security, that's what I'm going to do? And then tell us a little bit about your career.
Well, before I do that, I wanted to end Vincent's thought on making all these good decisions. If you make poor decisions along the way, the most important thing you can do is be honest. Because if you're not honest, you could have walked a straight and narrow your whole entire life and then did one thing wrong. But when asked if you did that thing, if you're not honest about it, you won't get a job. That's what it is. So background on me is I grew up in the Virgin Islands in St. Thomas in the Caribbean. I enlisted in the Army out of high school, and then I used a GI Bill to take me to college. And I went to college and decided I wanted to go back in the Army to be a pilot, and I did that. And but the funny thing is, while I was in college, I decided I wanted a career in federal law enforcement. So I actually pursued careers with what was then the United States Customs Service, but now is Homeland Security Investigations. I fancied myself a future FBI agent or a DEA agent as well. But I also learned about this little, I call it little niche federal law enforcement organization in the State Department called the Diplomatic Security Service. And what made it different is you can be assigned anywhere around the world. And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to live and work overseas. I thought that was, representing the United States overseas is quite frankly, when you think about putting your whole entire career together to do it overseas for the United States government, that was the best. That was sort of the pinnacle of serving your country. So back in 2001, this is before September 11th, the Diplomatic Security Service opened a vacancy announcement that they had not done in several years, and I applied and I went through the process, and I was ultimately hired. Our hiring process is similar, but very much different from other organizations. And I can say this because I did go through the hiring process for other organizations as well. The Diplomatic Security Service is concerned for first and foremost your ability to communicate well in both written and oral communications. How well can you write? How well can you write? And we don't talk about you need to be to be able to write elaborate writings, but to be able to write clear and concise communications to get your point across, a basic essay format, and your ability to articulate yourself and who you are and whatever the thought might be. Our process actually asks your questions about your motivation for joining the State Department. It asks you questions about it can ask you questions about current events, not specific current events, but asking you questions about your opinions on issues in the context of current events. And then we actually scenario-based questions that a typical diplomatic security special agent might find him or herself. Those questions not designed to sort of elicit from you whether or not you know what a diplomatic security special agent does. What it is designed to do is to determine your thought process by how you do your decision-making in your day-to-day life. And so I went through the hiring process and I ultimately was offered a job. Our training academy, unlike our counterparts, is 7 months long. It is the longest federal law enforcement training academy around. You start off.
So what I heard is diplomatic security is Harvard and FBI is community college. That's what I think I heard you say. It's a little more specialized. And if you guys don't know federal law enforcement, we got to give it to each other. So this is just, and especially FBI. So you went to MIT and you skipped community college. I'm sorry, keep going, I'm listening.
I will not jump on that bandwagon. but yeah, so you go to Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, and while you're there, so when you're at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, you are mixed in with other agencies. So half of your class might be diplomatic security special agents, the other half might be NCIS agents, or the other half might be Secret Service agents, or the other half might be or any one of these other agencies. The FBI and the DEA are separate up there in Quantico, at the community college up there, and not so good for them. So you do.
If you guys were so special, you would have your own academy, I think. Wouldn't you?
We'll
I've
talk
started. Shots fired.
So from there you come back to, we now have our own Foreign Affairs Security Training Center in Blackstone, Virginia, and you'll finish up there for another 4 months where you are doing the specialties and the hard skills and the soft skills that are important to diplomatic security service. We do a lot of shooting. We do a lot of driving, a lot of high speed driving. We want our agents to be able to, we want to be able to put our agents anywhere in the world and for them to be able to protect themselves and be able to protect others. So you find yourself doing that. We get a little bit more into our criminal program, but we really work on these quote unquote hard skills, these skills where we want these people that come from all different backgrounds to be able to have the self-confidence to know that wherever we put them in the world, that they can be able to protect themselves and protect others and avoid situations. It's not just about getting yourself in a situation and fighting your way out. It's about having that wherewithal to not get yourself into that situation. And so it's about 7 months long. When you graduate from our training academy, you then be assigned to one of the 9 field offices we have in the United States. San Francisco, Los Angeles on the West Coast, New York, DC, Boston on the East Coast, Chicago, Houston in the middle. So we have field offices and other smaller offices, and you'll spend about 2 years there. After about 2 years in your field office, then you'll be allowed an opportunity to what we call bid for overseas assignment. And just like you can find yourself in London and Paris and in Buenos Aires, you can also find yourself in Papua New Guinea or Bangui, Central African Republic, or South Africa. Pretty much the world literally is your oyster once you complete your requirements at the field office.
So Alston, you named a lot of countries that you have been to, and I just want to make sure you get to pick where you're going, or they're telling you, hey, you, Alston, you're over to Papua New Guinea.
You have an opportunity based on what's available at the time to express your preference to go to a particular country. Ultimately, we decide, meaning the assignment panel of diplomatic security will assign you where we need you in that moment, based on that availability. Okay. So some people will find themselves right out the gate getting exactly what they want, where they always dreamed of going, and other people might find it might take a little further on in your career to get that ideal assignment. But I can tell you, for someone that served in Algeria, Djibouti, Angola, and Germany, everywhere I've served is exactly where I want it to be.
Okay, so can I just say I want to be in London only and just stay there if that's what I want to do?
That's a good point. No, typically assignments are 2 to 3 years, and that's both domestic and overseas assignments. With other agencies, you may be able to stay at a single posting for up to, even domestically, even here in the United States, you may be able to stay somewhere up to 5 years. In the Diplomatic Security Service, in the State Department, we rotate assignments every 2 to 3 years. So every 2 to 3 years, you are on the move. And I think that may be one of the greatest challenges for us. But that's the type of people we recruit as well. When we go through the recruitment and hiring process, we're hiring people that understand that this is a lifestyle that you will be moving every 2 to 3 years throughout your career. And those moves will be both interwoven through the United States and overseas.
Wow, that sounds kind of hectic. Before we turn the corner, tell me, what are you doing when you're overseas? So we're talking to people who want to be federal law enforcement officers in the US. So what am I doing overseas? Do I have, can I be a federal law enforcement officer for the US while I'm overseas?
Yes, you can. But however, you probably want to take a different look at what you see as federal law enforcement overseas. Although there's an opportunity to do traditional criminal investigations, so when you were assigned overseas, you were assigned at one of our U.S. embassies or one of our U.S. consulates overseas, and you essentially are the quote unquote sheriff of that embassy. Any criminal matters, you are responsible for addressing those criminal matters in that embassy. But you're also—
So I'm investigating people in the embassy?
It's not in the embassy. No, you're taking criminal cases that may have started in US or even started overseas, and you're investigating those cases overseas on behalf of the agency. For example, we talk about our visa and passport fraud cases. Many of visa and passport fraud cases are started by fraudulent documents. So our agents overseas might be investigating fraudulent document networks overseas that's in a particular country. So yes, that's the traditional criminal investigative work. But we're also doing counterintelligence investigations. But those investigative sort of skills we have are also good for identifying threats to our U.S. diplomats overseas. Are we using those skills? We can identify threats using intelligence we derive from other sources to be able to identify threats and then put together policies that mitigate those threats.
Okay, and since a question came up in the chat, can you choose to either stay overseas or stay domestic? Because this sounds like a lot of moving. Can you choose one or the other, or you got to keep it moving?
No, you cannot. In a diplomatic security service, you need to be just as prepared to go to Houston, Texas. You need to be just as prepared to go to Bogota, Colombia, or to Luanda, Angola. We are worldwide deployable, so you need to be prepared to go worldwide. And Ellen, I wanted to sort of add this on because this is really important. I think a lot of people, when they think in terms of this sort of worldwide availability and moving every 2 to 3 years, and the disruption that causes, that can be very difficult for establishing a personal life. It's for those that want to start families and all those things. And I know for a lot of young kids, that's something that they don't really think about early on. I can tell you that through my career, I was able to have a full career and a full family life and have 4 children. And my colleagues that are out there that I work with every single day were able to do the same. So you're able to do that as well. This is a lifestyle that once you get into it, you adopt to your lifestyle.
Okay, thank you, Alston. I'm going to ask one last question, and I'm going to move over back to Andre in the DEA. Tell us a little bit about a career. Is there an age limit? If I finish college, I'm 20 years old, I want to get started, or maybe I've had a whole full career in the military and I'm 42, but I still think I want to do this. Is there any age limit to being an agent? Okay, well, I guess MIT wasn't listening carefully, so we'll move on to Andre.
Yeah, the age limit, Ellen, for DEA agents is 37. You have to come on before you 37 years old.
37. Okay, so you have to make a decision before you're 37.
Correct.
So Andre, we saw your pictures and we saw lots of drugs and we've seen all the shows, Narcos and everything. And it looks like, honestly, a dangerous career of fighting drugs. Please tell us the good and the bad, the ugly about your career, because most of it looks scary and there's a good chance you're going to get whacked by a narco terrorist.
Well, actually, I just think it's a very exciting career, and unlike the Diplomatic Security and State Department, DEA is not a foreign service agency, so we're not required to go overseas, and so you have to volunteer, and then you have to apply for those vacancies overseas. And the work you do overseas is so different than what you do domestically. Domestically, you have the ability to put the handcuffs on people, arrest people. And I did a lot of that early in my career. But as you move up in management, you do a little bit less of that. But when you work in a foreign environment for DEA, you don't have that authority to make arrests in foreign countries. So what you do have the authority to do is mentor and guide host country foreign counterparts in investigations. And
help me, who is host country? What does that mean?
Like the foreign countries, it's like, for instance, when I worked in Jamaica, the Jamaican Constabulary Force, the Narcotics Division. So we would specifically work with a specific unit in that particular country, and then we would guide them and share our trade craft as far as how we do investigations.
So whatever country you're in, you call them the host country. So if you're in Jamaica, they're the host country. If you're in Nigeria, they're the host country. Okay,
correct.
Got it.
Right. And so we share our expertise with them, and then ultimately we might have leads that come from the United States based on investigations and things such as that. But then we take those leads and we share them with our counterparts in those foreign countries, and we pursue that international angle and those traffickers who are actually involved in sending drugs to the United States. And so you might have a network of folks. Some folks might be working, some criminals in the same organization might be working in the United States, and some might be working in Colombia, Jamaica, Nigeria, you name it. And obviously, DEA special agents do not arrest the folks in those foreign countries. So the foreign counterparts will arrest those traffickers that are operating in their specific countries. And then you might find yourself in a situation where you might have to do a request that because the person has been charged in the United States and they're sitting in Colombia and the Colombians arrest them for the United States government, then you have to put in an extradition request to have those persons through this legal process be flown to the United States so they can face justice. So it's a little bit more different than the State Department and diplomatic security, but that's how we operate typically overseas.
Andre, that doesn't sound like what I see in the movies. When there's a bad guy, you get on a plane, you go to whatever country and you arrest them. You put the handcuffs in there because you're a US federal agent, put the handcuffs, bring them back on the plane. So now I'm hearing you say when you're in Colombia or Nigeria or Jamaica, you're not putting cuffs on anybody. What's happening? That's not what I see.
We are putting the handcuffs on them when they get on our plane. So when they come out of the custody of the foreign counterparts, then they turn them over to us. We're putting handcuffs on them from that foreign country, putting them on a plane and bringing them into the United States.
Thank you. No, Andre, it was a really good point, and I wanted to highlight that. When you're a U.S. federal law enforcement officer, your authorities are in the U.S. And although Andre and Alston may be all around the world, our authorities end in the U.S. And when we're overseas, we work with our partners as partners to fight crime, because crime is in everybody's interest to attack. But when we're in Jamaica, it's the Jamaicans putting the cuffs on them. We may be right there with them, but it's their country, so they take the lead and we help as partners. And it's good to really understand that where in federal law enforcement, your authorities end and where you're just a support figure. So thanks for highlighting that. Tell us a little bit though, Andre, a little bit more about some highlights in your career, because fighting drugs is such a unique animal.
Well, obviously some of the highlights in any DEA agent's career is going after the biggest and baddest criminals that you can go after. And so over the course of my career, I had some success in that area. For instance, there's been a lot of news about Brittany Griner, the WNBA player, who's been detained, illegally detained in Russia. And the United States government is negotiating with the arms trafficker for to switch that person for that arms trafficker, switch Brittany Griner for that arms trafficker. But that specific person I arrested in Bangkok many years ago. And that was a highlight because he was like probably the #1 arms trafficker in the world. I've also had
you said it very modestly, so let me go ahead and amplify what you said, because that's where I met you. We used to work at a special operation division at DEA, and it was a pretty amazing facility. And at the time, Victor Boots was one of the world's most renowned international drug criminals, and you had just landed that arrest. He was the big dog. And now as we look in the US to get Brittany out of jail unjustly, this is who they're asking for. What was the #1 drug trafficker that Andre and his team put cuffs on, got him from overseas? So tell us a little bit about that, particularly as it's come up in her situation.
Yeah, and we did in that investigation, we did a sting regarding Victor Boot. He was an arms trafficker. He was providing weapons to child soldiers blood diamonds, providing weapons to the Taliban, providing weapons to nefarious organizations that would typically do harm to U.S. citizens. And so we did a sting in which he was attempting to sell surface-to-air missiles to a narco-terrorist organization called the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. And so we did a sting and we lured him to Thailand, and he showed up, and thank God he showed up, and we were able to arrest him in that country. And then there was a long process. The extradition process took a while because the Russians did not want him to be extradited to the United States to face justice. And eventually, and actually I had left the country. I got a new assignment. And so I was worried that it would never come to fruition, but it took place shortly after I left Thailand, that the Thai government sided with the United States and decided to extradite him to the United States. So he ended up with a 25-year jail sentence. But that was just one case I was involved in, and I was involved in many others. For instance, there was a Hezbollah billionaire financier who's wanted on financial charges for providing money laundering to the Hezbollah, and also involved in some narcotics trafficking activities. And we arrested this Hezbollah billionaire as he was flying through North Africa to West Africa, and he owned a bunch of properties in West Africa. And we were able to take him into custody. We got the information that he was flying through, and we were taking him into custody in North Africa. And it was a big deal because once he was extradited to the United States, and it was a prolonged period in which the Lebanese did not want this guy extradited to the United States to face justice. But eventually we won out, and once he arrived in the United States, he pled guilty and he turned over $50 million to the United States government.
Wow.
And 2 months later, we arrested his nephew in the Gambia with 50 kilograms of cocaine. So, which was kind of a direct nexus between that Hezbollah, that terrorist organization, and the narcotics trade. And so that was another one of the significant things that I was involved in my
We
career.
see why you're all over the world. Why, even though our authorities end in the US, why it's important for agents to be all around the world, because you can't get these international drug traffickers or criminals just sitting in the US. We really have to work with our partners.
And you have to cultivate a partnership with the foreign counterparts. And that's one of the things that I did when I ran Africa continent. That was very important. You have to have great relationships with the counterparts in order to facilitate these extraditions. So within the 4 years in which I was the regional director for Africa, we had 17 high-value targets.
Extraditions. We might need to explain that a little bit. Extraditions. What's that?
Well, that's when a person has been charged in the United States, but they're sitting in another country, and so hopefully you have a relationship with that country, an agreement, a mutual legal assistance agreement in which you can actually, once the legal process takes place, the court can rule, the foreign courts can rule that, yes, we can turn this person over to the United States government. And therefore, then the United States government can bring in a plane and they can put that bad guy on that plane and extradite him and send him to the United States so he can face justice.
Okay, so Andre, now you got people's ears percolating. So I'm going to ask both you and Danielle the same question next. Is there recruiting? Now I'm thinking, okay, maybe DEA is for me, maybe NCIS is for me. Are they actively recruiting, and at what's the process, and at what level are they recruiting? So that more people can find out about it.
If you can go on the website, and I did it earlier before I got on the call today, you can go to the DEA.gov, and you'll see the website, and within that website you'll see the recruitment, and it tells you about the grades, the salaries, and everything such as that, and the opportunities that exist. Yeah, so
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you, Andre. Danielle, over to you too. One, well, if you can start with answering the question, how do you guys recruit? I see you guys have 12 different shows, NCIS, Hawaii, Miami, Las Vegas, New Orleans. I mean, I don't know where's next. How do you actively recruit? And then if you can also share with us a little bit about how you got in here and highlights from your career.
Okay, certainly. So how NCIS recruits. So we recruit through a variety of social media platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook. We oftentimes post Twitter as well, like we post job announcements. So if you respond to that and go on our website, ncis.navy.mil/careers, then you can see how to apply. But we will post our job announcements on social media outlets. Also through the referral process. So meeting an NCIS agent such as myself, you can approach us and let us know like, hey, I'm really interested in NCIS. And then we will provide your information to our human resources department, and you will get a phone call, from there for an interview. So that is really the fastest way to get into NCIS, is to meet another NCIS agent, talk to them, explain to them your desires, and then you will be recruited and hired into NCIS. We also
Danielle, I'm in South Fulton County. There's no NCIS agent. I don't know anybody, and I'm not gonna know an NCIS agent. So
okay,
what's my?
that's what I was gonna say. So we also attend college career fairs. So I just earlier this week was at Florida A&M attending career fair. October the 7th, we will be in Atlanta at a diversity career fair as well. We also go to all of the HBCUs and recruit. That is our new focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We also attend major university career fairs. So while you're in college, go to the career fairs. That's my major advice, is to attend the career fairs, and then you will learn about internship opportunities. So as you would go to the career fairs and you learn about internship, take an internship with NCIS. I mean, short of you burning
Are they paid interns? Because some of us have to
so
work.
of you burning a building down, right? Like, we hire our interns, and in the Washington, D.C. area, in the National Capital Region, our internships are paid. Outside of the National Capital Region, our internships are not paid. So in Atlanta, the nearest NCIS office to you would be in Jacksonville, North Carolina. And so unfortunately, that one would be an unpaid internship. And so you would have to, find your own way there. We have internships, again, like if you look on the website, the internships are offered all throughout the United States. And that is the fastest way as well to take an internship to get hired by NCIS. So if you don't know an NCIS agent, you're unable to attend a college career fair, you can just outright apply through the social media websites that we post on. So I would suggest, friending NCIS, and then that's how you can, learn about our different job postings. And so one of the questions you asked me was, how did I get into law enforcement? So I started out with Diplomatic Security Service and went through the MIT, as you guys are saying. And
are you not affirming it's MIT?
Well, I
lines drawn. Tell me which side you're on.
So, but I will say, how did I get into it was through a career fair, right? So at my HBCU that I attended, Florida A&M University, there was a career fair, and a diplomatic security service agent was there and was explaining to me the opportunities to travel the world. And so that really piqued my interest. While I was in high school, I went to a magnet high school that focused on criminal justice. So my interest started, when I was a junior and senior in high school. And then my major in college was criminal justice. And so at the career fair, when they were, explaining to me about the different opportunities that the State Department has, that really piqued my interest. I was as well interested in the FBI, but to start, I don't know if the age is still the same, but you had to be 23 to start with the FBI. With NCIS and the State Department, you could be 21. So I was very young. I was 21 with absolutely no, law enforcement experience. I had an internship with the Federal Bureau of Prisons. So I did have some, exposure to the federal government. And so that's how I really, got involved, was just at a career fair. So that would be my recommendation to students who are interested in a career in law enforcement, is to attend career fairs at your college. And that would, one of the questions in the chat was like, lesson learned throughout my career in life is just to take advantage of the opportunities presented to you while you're at the career fairs. Talk to everyone. The recent career fair that I was just at FAMU, I mean, the students who majors were business administration. They had no interest, really in law enforcement. But once I really started explaining to them the different opportunities that you could do, you don't have to be a special agent. There's a whole business side of the organization and how NCIS runs and how we receive funding from the Pentagon, how we pay our bills, how we manage our buildings, how we manage our facilities, how we design our facilities. So if your major is architecture, you could still come and work for NCIS and the Department of Navy without being a special agent. So I think that's really, important to know.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up, Danielle, because we've all watched NCIS and we see McGee and Gibbs, but we also see the analyst in the background that really helps them do all of their jobs, right? They're the brains sometimes behind the investigations, helping them get to the bad guy. So tell us just a little bit more about some of the other specialties in NCIS, which I'm sure are across the federal law enforcement.
Right. So the analyst, so having a good understanding of what's happening in the world. So last week I talked to some students who majors was global studies, right? And they're really interested in understanding, okay, what's happening in Russia and China? How is their economy working? How is their, military working? That would pertain, really to NCIS. And so those students, if they have a good background and understanding of how a, foreign government's military is working, then they can also work with federal agents, NCIS agents, on helping them direct their investigations, right? So they help drive our investigations, the analysts do, who, sit in the background with all the computers and TV screens and things all over the place, like you see on the TV show. Without them having a really good understanding of what's happening in the world and helping guide our investigations and telling us, hey, look over here, look under that rock, or, hey, I really think, that rock is really important, we would not be able to operate. And so again, accountants. So we need accountants to really help us understand the individuals who have contracts with the Department of Navy. Lockheed and Martin and Boeing, they all design and build things for the military to utilize, and they all have a contract with the US government saying that they're going to provide X, Y, and Z service. But we need accountants and people who have majored in math and engineering to help us understand that. Help us to talk to the scientists and understand, okay, so you're designing a submarine that can do whatever, 1,000 miles, out to sea. We need engineers who understand that help us also guide our investigations. And so, and unlike all of you all who are saying you have no authorities overseas, NCIS agents, we do have authorities overseas because we operate on US military bases. US military bases in other countries are considered the United States. So I've been stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and I'll give that for an example. If a military member commits a crime on the military base, they have committed a crime that is in Japan, they have committed a crime in the United States. So let me explain that again. In Okinawa, Japan, if you're on a military base that's in Japan, that is considered US property. So if there's a homicide, a burglary, a sexual assault investigation, any of those types of incidents, then NCIS agents can arrest an individual in that country. If they commit the crime, off the base, then we work with the host nation law enforcement to bring that person back to the US military base, where then NCIS agents investigate that. So that's also a part of our recruiting is to help you understand that while you're overseas, and like the State Department, we're overseas often, you don't really have a choice, right? You have to go. You have the investigative authority while you're overseas on a military base. So we try to talk to the young people to let them know you will not be in San Diego, California, your entire career. You will not be in Hawaii your entire career. You will wind up in Singapore. You will wind up in Yokosuka, Japan, and you will be making felony level arrest on the military bases.
Wow, that is a really good point. Thank you. I never thought about that. Yeah, but that is a different jurisdiction you have working on a military base where you do have authorities. So thanks for that distinction. Let me move over to Francis. Francis, again, everybody's ears are percolated and they're interested in careers in being an FBI agent. What is where can they get recruited? How can they get into this? And a little bit of the highlights of your career. I know you've traveled a bit, but you've been mainly domestic because you focused on U.S. national security interests. So two-part. Let's start with I want to be an FBI agent. Where do I start? And then a little bit about your career and the domestic focus.
Well, just like the other panelists were saying, Ellen, we do go out to universities as well. But here's the thing. Don't wait for the FBI to come knocking at your university, at your HBCU, at your high school, at your middle school. Go grab that information. Unlike when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s where you had to really dig for information, everything is on your phone. Everything is on your laptop. Go to FBI.gov and take a look. And you can see that if you want to be an agent, you have to be 23 years old to be an agent. You have to have your bachelor's degree in no particular discipline. However, if you get into the STEM fields, the science, the engineering, the mathematics fields, that's better. If you major in a particular language that we really need, whether it's Farsi or Mandarin or Russian, that will put you ahead of the game. So when I was growing up, when I was in high school, even during my college time, going to career fairs, I didn't see the Bureau there. I didn't see other federal agencies there. I had to go seek that out myself. So don't wait for them to come knocking on your door. You go grab it. I never met an FBI agent. I never met a federal law enforcement officer before. That didn't stop me from going out and seeking that information. So make sure you do that. And unlike the rest of the panelists, no, I haven't been overseas doing things, even though the FBI, they're overseas in smaller capacities. You'll find them in the various embassies around the world, one or two here or there. They're called legal attaches. What are they there for? For a number of reasons, because crime doesn't stop at our borders. People flee, they go overseas, they commit crimes to American citizens overseas.
So, Vincent, I think it's good you mentioned that you've been mainly domestic, because I think overseas is probably an anomaly and the exception and not the norm, because a lot of people do want to stay domestic. So really interested to know about your career domestically, because overseas is not for everybody, but it's good to know we have a variety. What are some of the things that you worked on here in the US?
Sure. Well, when I was stationed up in New York City, first of all, my career is counterintelligence. What is counterintelligence? Basically, I'm gonna boil it down to spy catching, okay? And preventing spies from coming over here and doing bad things, okay? And so New York and the DC area, that is just the mixing pot. That is top level stuff when it comes to sending the world's spies to the United States to do business. Could spies be there in the Atlanta metro area? Sure. But for the most part, they're going to be in New York. Why? Because we have the United Nations in New York. We have all these foreign missions in New York. And they send people over here that are here, yes, to do business with the United States, to conduct foreign diplomacy, to get their point across when it comes to, advancing their country, okay? But in that mix, they will send spies here to steal our military information. to steal our government secrets, to come here and sabotage the way we do business, i.e. voting, okay? My job when I was in New York, my job when I was in the DC area, my job when I was in Los Angeles is to stop those people. What I do doesn't always make the news, because when you work national security matters, you have to be undercover about it. You have to be low key about it. You can't.
And Francis, tell us, Vincent, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Tell us a little national security. It's a word we hear, but peel the layers for us. What does that really mean, national security?
When we talk about national security, we're talking about essentially keeping the way in which we live viable. We are protecting the homeland. We're making sure nothing goes bluey anywhere across the country. No one's coming here to blow anything up that is sponsored by a foreign government. No one's coming here to steal away so much information from the United States that before you know it, it hurts us financially. Where, like, for example, company X puts a lot of research, a lot of time into developing a certain car, let's say, a car that no one else is developing in that particular manner. There's a lot of time, a lot of money that goes into that. Well, another country could come here with their spy and take that information just like that, bring it back to their country. They can reproduce that in no time at all and get things on the market before that US company can. And then all of a sudden, everybody that works at that US company, we just don't need you anymore because the market is already flooded with this other foreign vehicle. And then you lose jobs. And guess what happens when they lose jobs? They can't go to the supermarket. They can't go to Disneyland. They can't buy this product or that product. So it's a domino effect that hurts the whole entire country. So one of the main jobs of the FBI is counterintelligence. Once again, spy catching and preventing spies from doing what they do. We can't always put handcuffs on these people and bring them into our jails because some of them have what's called diplomatic security, diplomatic
Immunity.
Diplomatic immunity, I'm sorry. And meaning that when we find these individuals doing the wrong thing, we can stop them, but then we have to send them back to their own country. You know, but you know what? On the flip side of that, when we have our people, the CIA, for example, go over to other countries and they're doing things in interest of the FBI, I'm sorry, the interest of the United States, and they get caught doing something, they'll have that diplomatic immunity as well, and they'll be sent back and they won't necessarily be kept in prisons overseas. So that's how that works out.
Oh, okay. So Vincent, you said a very key thing, and that's what I really want to transition to next: money. Money, money, money. So everybody's job sounds really interesting, fascinating, a little bit dangerous, but certainly exciting. Want to know, if I get into this line of work, am I going to be able to take care of my family? Am I going to be living well? Am I going to be paycheck to paycheck? So I'll start back at the top with Alston, and I want to talk a little bit about a salary range in the career. Obviously, your first year on the job is going to be different from 20 years, but if you can give us a brief synopsis, I appreciate it. So Alston, am I living well as a DS special agent?
I think it's fair to say, not just with DS, but through all the federal law enforcement agencies, we are probably some of the most highly paid people in the federal government. So a career in federal law enforcement is not just it's both personally, professionally, and financially rewarding, and I think that's across the board.
Okay,
as far as numbers go, if we want to talk numbers, we're talking an initial salary range when you're first hired somewhere in the $70,000 range annually, to within about 10 years into your career, within in the sort of mid six figures, 150 range. If you make it into the senior ranks after about a career about 17, 20 years, you're talking about closer to the 180 and 200 range, depending on where you're at. So as your career progresses, so does your financial compensation. And again, it is compared to our counterparts within the federal government, we are paid extremely well.
Okay, so I'm starting today in 2022. I can look at roughly 70 grand, but what I see is the sky's the limit. Well, I won't say the sky's the limit, but I have a progressive path to keep growing financially wise.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's compared, and quite frankly, you can compare that to your colleagues in the private sector as well, doing similar work.
Okay. 70. So if I come in, okay. Andre, let me move over to you. What am I looking at as a DEA agent from new to latter end of my career? Am I going to be living well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's consistent with what Austin says. I think the range starts more or less because you could entry level could be like 60,000 to 85,000, depending on what your qualifications, your background. If you have a specialty, if you have a master's degree, if you have prior law enforcement experience, and so if you are a pilot, the range when you first get hired is in the area of 60 to 85,000, and that includes that's based on having a base pay, but also include what's called law enforcement availability pay, LEAP pay. And I believe all of the federal law enforcement agencies have that LEAP pay, which is 25% that's on top of that base pay salary that you're going to get. In addition, depending on where you live, you'll get a cost of living. A DC cost of living is kind of high. Washington, DC cost of living. Chicago cost of living is kind of high. And so some places, if more rural area, they got what's called a COLA, cost of living allowance, and it's a smaller amount in some rural areas where it's not as expensive to live in those places. So that's an addition on your salary. So it just varies from location to locations throughout the United States.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Andre. That's good to know. So Danielle, over to you. So whether I'm in Japan or I'm in Germany, how's my salary going to change? But if you can also give us the gamut of ranges for NCIS special agent.
So NCIS, I mean, we're the same as the FBI, DEA, and State Department. The State Department's on a different pay scale, but the numbers wise, it's going to be the same. So we're no different than any other federal law enforcement. And we also get paid the law enforcement availability pay, which is an additional 25% of your base salary. And then the locality pay, which is equivalent to the same. NCIS is no different than the State Department or DEA. But I would say the difference for us would be that when you're stationed overseas, although like the State Department gets the housing allowance, so we're the same with that, right? Where the government will pay for your housing while you're living overseas. But different from the other organizations, we have the ability to where you can live on the military base. So you can live on a military base while you're in the United States and while you're overseas. So that significantly reduces your housing that you have to pay, right? So then while you're making the same money as a DEA agent, you're paying less for your housing and your living expenses in the United States. So if you're stationed in Hawaii, you can live on the base in Hawaii and pay less money for your housing. Also different from the other organizations is that you could shop on military bases for your clothing and for at the grocery store, which they call it the commissary. And the commissary is significantly cheaper than shopping at Giant, and you don't pay the taxes on whatever goods and services you purchase at the commissary. So that you wind up keeping more of your salary because you're paying less for housing and you're paying less for your groceries, right? And your clothing. So that is an added bonus for working for NCIS. You get the same benefits that military personnel receive. Also,
okay, go ahead. No, that's real perks.
Yeah, those are real perks. So when you start having kids, Ellen, you said you have 4 boys. So if you have 4 children and you're trying to feed flow them. If you are living, overseas, or if you're living in Hawaii or San Diego and you're able to shop at the military commissary and pay a reduced amount, I'll just give you like a quick example. In Hawaii, off the base, a gallon of milk is like $7 for 1 gallon of milk. But on base, you're paying the regular price, which is like, $2 for a gallon of milk. So that is more money in your, you're getting paid the same as a DEA agent, but your take home, what you can actually spend on, taking trips and going to the beach, you will have more money in your pocket. And then also with NCIS, if you're hired on and you agree to go to San Diego or to Camp Pendleton, which is south of Los Angeles, and you agree to go to Hawaii, we will give you a $5,000 sign-in bonus. So we give you extra money for agreeing to go to harder to fill locations, right? So your initial bonus will help you. Your ability to shop on the military bases will help you.
Wow, that's real. No, I heard that real well. That's money back in your pocket. So that sounds like some good additions into the regular salary that is going to help you come up. Thank you for that, Danielle. And Vincent, as far as the salary range, you find it similar as far as the range, or what can you tell us about how well FBI special agent is living?
Well, I can tell you, Ellen, that when I came in over 20 years ago, my salary was $44,000. Okay, $44,000 in New York, even 20 years ago, it is not that much. You can live well, much better in other places with that money. When I left the Bureau just a couple of months ago, because I am now retired, my salary, and this is public information, so it's not a big deal, was $176,300. Okay.
Oh, okay. That's a long way from 44. That's a long
way from 44. And it is very good money. I never missed any meals. The wife never missed any meals. The kids never missed any meals. I just dropped one daughter off in college a few weeks ago. But here's the thing. Don't get so wrapped up about the money, because it's living within your means. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people that make more money than I do that live paycheck to paycheck. Okay, live within your means. There's no need for you, when there's 2 adults in the house, to have 3 and 4 cars in the driveway. Okay, there's no need for you, even as an FBI agent. I don't know about the DSS, State Department people, but as an FBI agent, you don't have to drive a Mercedes and an Audi and stuff like that. Drive a decent car, do the right thing, live within your means. When you get outside of your means, it doesn't matter how much money you make, okay? And here's another thing too, don't let the money drive you. The work that we do as federal agents is some of the most important work that you can do. It is so interesting. On day one, being in a New York office and the files and the cases that they handed to me, it blew my mind. I was like saying to myself, I'm just Vince Francis, and really, you want me to do this? But then I said, wait a minute, they entrusted me to do this. They gave me a gun, a badge, credentials. Damn right I can do this, okay? No. Damn right I can do this. And that's what I did during the course of my career. But bottom line is, you will not be poor being a federal agent. You will be well taken care of, okay?
Yeah. Loud and clear. No, thank you guys for saying this, because this is real work you do, but you're also public servants, and you're seen to everybody's paid and compensated very well, because there's a lot of challenges, hardships in this job. But at the end of the day, each of you are public servants. We're not doing this to make anybody rich or wealthy, or make sure, nobody's, we're the government, nobody's making money, but we're there fulfilling a public service. So well said. Okay, so as we look to kind of wrap up a little bit, we've said a lot, and I want to go back and make sure we answered all of our questions and also touch on just a few more things. I heard in all the interesting work you do, there are also real dangers. If it weren't, you wouldn't all be carrying a gun, and they wouldn't teach you to drive. They wouldn't teach you to investigate. They wouldn't teach you counterintelligence tactics. So real talk, as sexy and as interesting as this job is, there are a lot of dangers in it. And we want to have a candid conversation so people come into this with the right frame of mind and the right reasons. But Bernice, can I pause for just a moment and make sure, did we answer all the questions in the chat, or did I leave anything?
Yes, something was missed. Let's see. Okay, so we have a couple of high school students on, 9th and 10th graders. And let's see. So I had asked, I know there was an age limit. We got the number from
DEA.
DEA, said at what age? 37. After that, you couldn't apply. Is that the same for DSS, FBI, and NCIS?
Well, on paper, 37 is the limit. However, if you were in the military for a while, you may be able to get a waiver, but for the most part, 37 is the limit. But there are waivers out there if you look for it.
Okay, thank you for that. Let's see. And we did have a comment. It's so important for youth to see themselves or have representation in law enforcement. So to see all of you and in the different agencies is so empowering. And so we're hopeful that this will encourage students. We will definitely post this out and share. So thank you, because what we do see on TV, they don't always look like us. So to know all of you in the
You paused, Bernice, your connection's bad and it paused, but I think that is a good question. It's nice to see all of the vibrant faces of color, but we don't necessarily see robust numbers on the shows. Yeah, you got stuck. So, but I think I kept on your thought.
Okay.
Do we see us widely represented in each of your organizations? Do we see diversity of people in addition to backgrounds and so forth? Are you guys the unicorns, or are they really people of color and other ethnicities well represented within your agencies? So let me start with DSS. Alston.
If I'm being 100% honest, Black women are underrepresented in our organization. We have about close to about 2,200 agents. I think if we're talking about Black women, they represent less than 100 of those. Maybe if we're lucky, maybe about 50. As far as people of color, the percentage is a little bit higher, probably in the teen percentages. It's fluctuated over the years. But to answer your questions, we are represented, probably not as in federal law enforcement, especially in diplomatic security service, not as well as we'd like to be. But at the same time, I think there was a comment actually in the chat room, a question about the sort of what's relevant to this is about military service. The question was, yes, you don't have to be prior military to be hired, but if you are prior military, does that give you a sort of leg up on everyone else? I can tell you in the diplomatic security service, it does not. What we're looking for is at your core whether or not you're a good fit for this organization. That's what we look at our core. Now, as you go through once you're selected in a hiring process, there's some legal there's some veterans preference that can help you get hired a little faster, but in selection process it does not. I hope that answers both of those questions.
Okay, no, it did. For diversity, I think over to you, Andre. Are we seeing diversity of people? Can we feel like what's represented on the screen we're going to see when we join the DEA?
To be perfectly honest with you, probably not. And just as Alston mentioned, especially at the senior executive level. Like when I left, there was one female African-American senior executive with DEA, and then she subsequently took another job. So I don't know that they even have one at this particular time right now. So at the lower ranks, then yeah, but I think when I came on, I believe it was like African Americans made up 10% of the organization, and it might be down to like 6% right now. So it's been very difficult as far as recruiting and getting candidates through the process, specifically with the polygraphs. We've had a lot of African-American recruits struggle with that polygraph for whatever reason. And so once again, that's why a forum like this is so important. that we address that with these young people to make sure they do everything they can so they can, to keep their nose clean so they can make sure they get through that process. So the numbers are not reflective of this venue, what we're doing right now.
We're giving them the bait and switch right now, huh? This is not where you're going to be me. Danielle.
I'm sorry, Ellen. I just
Yeah.
want to point out that so we keep reference back to the sort of polygraph as being like this
Weeding out
this
factor.
weeding out. The polygraph is not weeding out your bad behavior. The polygraph is weeding out your ability to tell the truth about your bad behavior, and that's a really good important point.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Danielle, NCIS, are we going to see diversity? Are we going to see faces like ours if we join?
You will see diversity in NCIS, but so our organization, we have 1,100 special agents, and throughout
1,100 agents, and you have about 12 shows?
1,100 agents, that's right, and 2,200 personnel. So within the special agent ranks, there the African American percentage is right now at 13%. So if you look at that numbers at 1,113%, I mean, that's actually really good from the African American perspective. Where we are missing from the diversity aspect is Hispanics and Asians. So our Asian numbers are at about 2%, and our Hispanic numbers are at about 9%. So we are struggling in the Hispanic and Asian areas. For the women, we are, 30% of our organization special agents are women. So we're doing really well in the women. So, but that is in the junior ranks, because we've done a really good job of recruiting and trying to bring on diversity. Where we are struggling in the African American ranks is in middle to senior management to the executive ranks. We have no African Americans who are executives. We have very few that are at middle management, and certainly at the entry level management area, we, I believe, only have about 2% African Americans at the entry level management part. So a vast majority of our African Americans are not in management. So that is where NCIS is struggling in regards to diversity. So I kind of want to just circle back to the pay question. I mean, I'm sorry, not the pay, but the age question. Mm-hmm. It's the same for NCIS with 37, exactly the same with the FBI. I mean, it's a federal policy to give veterans preference, but you do not receive any special treatment because you were in the military, right? Like, we're not going to select you because you were in the Marine Corps. It helped NCIS for us to have a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds. So we don't look solely at individuals who have a military experience. Where you will get a preference or a leg up is if you are coming from another federal law enforcement organization. So how I came from the State Department and transferred over to NCIS, I was hired faster. I went through the process faster. So we will hire an FBI agent faster than we will hire someone right out of college. So that is what the experience in another federal organization would give you, is you would be able to go through the hiring process faster.
Okay, thank you. Now, one thing you did say that was very interesting is that 30% women in NCIS. That's really above and beyond federal law enforcement in general, because across the different federal law enforcement, it hovers around 10%. So to have 30% in NCIS, that's really an outlier and something good to know, particularly for women. Women are not widely represented, no matter which agency you're in. Something about it, we do not get a lot of women in federal law enforcement. I'm afraid to go. I'm sorry.
I think for NCIS, what draws women into the organization is we're a very family-friendly organization. So you have a lot of women who are married to military members. So that is how I believe our numbers are, higher than other federal law organizations. That is why I left Diplomatic Security Service and came over to NCIS, because at the time my spouse was an active duty Marine and our careers matched up. So I believe what with diplomatic security service, you know, being able to travel, the fact that you have to travel and move so much overseas, if you, as a woman, and oftentimes your spouse, their career does not match up with what you're doing. But with NCIS, a lot of our special agents are married to active duty military members. So I believe that is why you see such a high number of women in our organization.
Very good. Well noted. Thank you for that. I'm going to go over to you, Francis, but I know I feel like we're not going to end on a positive note when it comes to diversity. So tell us a little bit about FBI. Are they going to see all the hues and colors and backgrounds, or how does the narrative shake out for the Bureau?
From support personnel, yes. Support personnel, meaning the people that don't carry guns and badges. Yes, you'll see a lot of African Americans, a lot of people from various backgrounds in the FBI. People don't realize the FBI has about 35,000 people in it. There's only about 16,000 of those are actually agents. That just tells you how important the analysts are, the support personnel are, the people that do all the paperwork behind the scenes that don't get a lot of screen time on these TV shows. They're very important. So if you're in a situation where, you know what, I don't think I have the physical fitness, and I'll never have that to be an agent, but I really want to work for the FBI or the DEA or one of these organizations, guess what? There's a place for you there. You can be right next to the action. You know what I mean?
But will I be Director Ray? That's what I want to know. Well, can I be Comey? Can I be Ray?
you could, but go ahead and be a lawyer first, and then go and be a judge. And because those top people are usually not agents. So those people are usually not agents. The number 2 person in the Bureau is usually an agent. But you know, getting back to the numbers of and representation in the FBI for African Americans. The most recent numbers I had was from back in 2017. And as far as Black agents were concerned, we had about less than 600, okay? Out of, back then we had about 14,000 agents. Out of about 14,000 agents, less than 600, and as far as the women were concerned, it was like 123, okay? But here's the thing, don't let that scare you. Don't let that scare you, because if you go with that philosophy, well, I won't see myself in this meeting and that meeting and stuff like that, then you're not going to be there. And then it's just a cascading effect. I can tell you the truth of the matter is that after a while, I didn't even see it anymore. I go to these meetings, I don't even see it anymore, you know, because I'm just used to being the only one there, you know? And then every once in a while when I see somebody else that has my same complexion, you know, inside we're doing cartwheels and stuff like that. I remember the first time I met Ellen.
Me too. We didn't even know each other, and we just hugged. We just like, really, is that you? You know, I think we'd emailed. So it's an instant bond in law enforcement, because unfortunately it's not far and wide. We hug like old cousins, like hadn't seen each other.
Most of we'd never even seen each other before, but we didn't do it in the presence of others.
Yes, we got alone and hugged.
Others were going and said, hey, it's good to see you. I didn't know that you were in here doing this. Ellen had a nice, beautiful corner office there. And I was like, I'm so proud of her and stuff. And she said, my husband works a couple of floors down. I was like, really? And stuff. So the thing is,
it's a good community.
The funny thing is, of the small number of us, you go ahead and ask us a few names, and we almost guarantee that we're going to know those people. We know each other. We try to keep each other's back for the most part. That being said, let me let you know, and this is something that your family will tell you, and then you'll learn throughout life. Just because someone looks like you, I'm preaching off another box over here. Just because someone looks like you doesn't always mean they have your best interest at heart. Take a look at who we have on certain courts in this country, okay? So be careful about that, because if that's the only way that I was able to get through the ranks and rise up the chain, because people look, I wouldn't have gone but so far, okay? You have to have other people who don't look like you, who are of good moral character, who are good people, they can look after you as well. Okay, so don't think you only have to be about this.
That's such a good point, Vincent. Thank you for mentioning it. It's funny, our meeting reminds me a lot of when I met Andre, and I was a mid-level agent, just so happy, head over heels to be working at a DEA facility. And Andre at the time had the big corner office with the view, and I was so happy to see one of the bosses was somebody that looked, and sure enough, from jump, it was like family, and he embraced me. And like I said, I was mid-level and Andre was big boss, but we've been in touch ever since. And you just have that instant connection among any law enforcement agency. Oh my goodness, we must be having fun because I cannot believe we're out of time. But guys, I want to do two things before we end, and we've only got about 10 minutes. Is really talk about the dangers. I don't think you can really talk about a career in law enforcement and not give it a proper nod as to this is real stuff, real talk, real dangers, real criminals, real people who will do nothing but be happier to see your head whacked off. And I say about diplomatic security with the utmost affection and respect, if you have not at some point in your career really thought you were going to die, then you have not graduated basic agent class. You just haven't. DS will send you to some corners of the world to do some things, and you will be scratching your head like, huh? You know, it's part of why we come. I wouldn't change anything because I want to go to those corners of the world that I can't even pronounce or don't know exist. So that's why I come. But it is real. I have been in Pakistan in corners alone. I have been in Algiers with a baby when bombs are going off. I have been in some real things. So I don't want to rush it, but I do want to make sure we're on time and let everybody talk about the dangers of the job. So we're giving a full picture. So let me go back up to you, Alston, in diplomatic security.
It's been absolutely exciting. The challenges, the challenges and what the organization asks you to do is part of why I'm here. I was in Afghanistan in 2002 when our embassy was not what it was then. I was one of the first diplomatic security teams to go into Baghdad when I was the Coalition Provisional Authority. I was in Haiti in 2004 when President Aristide decided to leave the country, and the chaos that ensued there. I just, like Ellen said, you go into Algeria, you go to all these different places. It's dangerous. It's a certain nature about the job. If that's something that concerns you, if you want a safe job where you feel like the only threat you have is going to be your drive to and from work, federal law enforcement is not the career for you, and certainly not diplomatic security.
Yeah. Okay. And let me go to Andre, please. Yeah.
A little bit different because we have agents obviously in places like Pakistan and Afghanistan. So obviously we have the same dangers that diplomatic security would have, and the fact that we have personnel in very dangerous places. As far as the job is concerned, like for instance, when I came on, we were doing did a tremendous amount of arrests. And so what you try to do is you try to mitigate threats by controlling the situation, controlling the arrest situation. And that's what we typically do domestically. And so inherently there is some danger, but we've been very fortunate and not had a lot of incidents in which our personnel has gotten hurt. It happens occasionally, but it's very rare. And so we try to mitigate the threats. And so there is some danger, and I've had friends that I've tried to interest years ago, tried to have them interested in this job, and they want nothing to do with it. So it's just a matter of if it's something you want, it's for you, then you should apply, but it's not for everyone.
Thank you, Andre. Danielle, please, the real dangers of this type of work.
Right. So, I mean, with NCIS, oftentimes, people think, well, military members, active duty military members would not be committed to level offenses. And oftentimes, we have agents who get kind of lulled into a level of comfort, but we are dealing with military members who have extensive training, extensive firearm training, who have served in combat zones, who suffer with, post-traumatic stress disorder. And so oftentimes when they have, come back from Afghanistan or they come back from Iraq, they are suffering with a variety of mental health issues. And so the danger is always real because they don't know if you're friend or foe. Just 2 days ago, we had a special agent who was in Houston doing a witness interview of a sexual assault, and he was shot by a active duty sailor there at the apartment. So he was shot 3 times and he's actually still in the hospital. This was 3 days ago. So for NCIS agents, the danger is real because you're dealing with active duty military members who have extensive military training, have extensive firearms training, and who have served in combat zones, who have, mental health issues, a variety of, trauma that they are dealing with. So we always have to stay focused, ready, and prepared to deal with the threat. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vincent, over to you, the real dangers of the job.
They don't give you that gun for nothing. So it can be dangerous, but we do things in numbers. Very rarely is a FBI agent going out, making an arrest by themselves or doing something by themselves. So there is safety in numbers. And when you take a look at the scale of what's more dangerous, it's more dangerous to be a local police officer pulling somebody over, not knowing who's getting out of that car, whether it's a little old lady or somebody who's like, you know what, this is my last day on earth and I'm going out in a blaze of glory. So the thing is a danger aspect to it, but that's not your everyday situation. You're at a desk, you're doing research, you're interviewing people, so you're not always out there touching your gun, so to speak. At least I'll say for the Bureau. In my 20 years, I never had to shoot anybody, and I only had to take my gun out of my holster a couple of times. Okay, so yes, keep that in the back of your mind, but don't let that scare you off. You can go to the supermarket after we finish this right now, and bad things can happen. Do you want to be the person without the weapon, or the person who was trained down in Quantico for 4 or 5 months, knowing how to use that weapon, and you can take care of business?
Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. A good way to end. Great careers, great travel, great, amazing investigations and so forth. But with any job that requires a firearm on your side, there are some real dangers. So it's good to put a balance. Now, I know we just have a few minutes remaining. So Bernice, please help me a little bit. Do you want me to put the questions out, a little quiz for our students, or and let them answer in real time, or how should we proceed?
You can just ask them and see who will raise their hand and just unmute themselves and answer.
Oh, okay, great. Let me ask you, which law enforcement agency has more posts around the world than any other law enforcement organization that are stationed overseas in more places around the world than any other law enforcement organization?
Okay, this is your time to answer, students.
Yeah, so we've got 4 agencies that you learned about. Please tell me which one is in more places around the world than any other agency.
And nice prizes.
Yes, what are the prizes? We've got, go ahead.
$20 cash.
$20
and
cash
then
money.
A badge.
Pins and coins.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough to move them?
Anybody want to answer? Please put it in the chat. Are we failing the quiz? Okay. Okay, we'll put a pause on that. Which organization focused primarily on drug trafficking?
Come on, students. Kojo answered the first one.
Okay.
Is it diplomatic security?
$20 shall be cash app to you.
All right.
Which one focus on drug trafficking?
Come on, student.
One prize per student, but gotcha.
Right.
Still answering the mail. Which organization centers around military installations domestically and abroad? Do, 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 do,
Students.
do, 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 do. FRI, what is that?
FBI probably.
Oh, double we'll ask the next question. Maybe we'll come back. Which law enforcement agency is equivalent to community college? No, I'm kidding. I'm
She's amusing herself.
I'm gonna put my nose on the wall. No, seriously.
Please.
Which law enforcement agency is focused primarily on national security interests? Do, 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 do. Okay, let me change the question. What is the largest law enforcement agency that has more agents than any other law enforcement agency? Do, 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 do. I haven't even got to the hard questions yet.
Well, we're going to be wrapping it up. It's right at 1 o'clock.
Okay, it's right at 1 o'clock. First of all, let me thank all 4 of our panelists, Alston Richardson, Danielle James, Andre Kellem, author of Truth and Terror, a drug enforcement story. It's available on Amazon. It's available online, so go look it up. It's a fictional account, but is it? And then Vincent Francis from our very own FBI, and he knows I love him. That's why I poke at the community college. We got to. They're going to get us another way. FBI is going to get us another way, so we got to get them first. No, thank you guys so much. What you shared is invaluable, and it's especially folks like you, your extensive careers, what you've done and what you've been able to share. As we said, this is recorded, so it's going to be lived on, and many people are going to be able to see it. Many people of minority backgrounds, of ethnicity, all across the hue can see there are people like them in law enforcement. You name the 3-letter agency, we're there and we're represented. So thank you so much for your time, your commitment to sharing with the young people, and we really appreciate you all. So thank you very much. And over to you, Zena's House, for putting on just pivotal programming for our underrepresented youth and minorities. It's so important that we hear of this kind of information so they know it's a place for them as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will just second that. Thank you all for giving your time this morning to share about your careers, the highs, the lows. This was really, really good information. So it is going to be recorded and it'll be put on our Zena's House YouTube page. And so I'm going to share it with our parent network on Facebook and our Instagram. This is amazing. And I think, again, this is really good information for our high school students and college students to understand and to be on the lookout that all agencies are looking to increase diversity. And I think it seems so far removed that a lot of us would think that we can't do it. But to see all of you, to see the requirements, this is absolutely doable. And we're going to do our part, as we've already started, by making sure that we know that making sure that our students know that this is definitely a career that they can get into. So thank you again, and follow us, and we hope to maybe do this again with other agencies in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Zena's House.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. A few people are saying stuff in the chat. They may be just saying thank you. Okay, everybody's put their emails in there. Wonderful. Thank you. So are you saying students can email you, or just me, or?
You coordinate it for them.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Okay. Well, thank you and have a great Saturday.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye. Right. I was not.